You think the time's right to give Eddie the boot, right?
Yeah, I mean,
The sigh, yeah.
you've got to be careful, haven't you? Because you don't want to sound like that bitter person that, like I did, end it on not great terms with him. And you've always got to be careful taking opinions of present and previous players because it's so hard as a present player in that squad to say what you think because obviously they're protective of what they want to do and that's play for England. And people like myself that have left the environment can come across bitter or might not have great feelings towards Eddie. So you've got to be careful with that. But if you look at the facts, which what I was trying to get across in my column, he's the highest paid international coach, I believe. He's got the highest budget. He's got endless amounts of coaches and consultants. He's got unbelievable depth of talent. If you compare what they've got, at least in that starting 15, if not 23, if not 35 man squad compared to any other country in the world, you'd back them all day long. So he's got the talent. So something's not right. And unfortunately, as the head man, he's got to be held to account, which doesn't seem to have happened in the last couple of years from the RFU, in my opinion. So yeah, I think, like I said, in the Wales situation, if there's going to be changes, it's now. It needs to happen now, doesn't it? Because we've still got a year left. South Africa did it. Countless other teams across sports, like I said, have done it, and you always see a reaction. But I just think someone like Razor, if you're going to pin me down to one person, I think now in sport, it's much more than just being tactically and technically astute on the field and on the pitch, on the grass, whatever. There's more to it. It's about creating environments, culture, understanding personalities, being aware of yourself, being aware of people around you. And for me, like compared to anyone else I've experienced, Razor just seems to have it. He was building connections with myself and other people within hours of knowing him. Like I'd known him for years. It was slightly weird, but speaking to him, he's done he obviously has it. Like he's able to do it, but he's also done a lot of work in understanding personalities and how to get the best out of them, how to build environments to do that. Unbelievable awareness of himself and work that he's done on that to then be able to get a team around him of coaches or whatever else to fill in those gaps that he may not be as good at, if that makes sense. So just having those conversations with him and thinking what a modern day kind of head coach needs now, I think he'd be ideal.
See, Brownie, you are a deep thinker. That's what I said. That was the start of it. We're just getting into it now. But I 100% agree with you, mate. I spoke to Scotty Robertson and we were talking about them specific things. And he's one of them guys that whoever's worked with him, whether or not, like you have in the Barbarians, where it's easy to work with people because it's on a bit of a jolly and the atmosphere is very different. But you, who didn't really know him before, didn't know him at all, I'm sure many players in that Barbarian side, his club side is exactly the same. But anyone who's had any dealings with him, and this is the buzzword, but also the main point, on a human element, right? A human level, man to man, have all said the guy is unbelievable. And I just think with England, like you've just said, all of the things that they've got, the access to the money, which is big, the players, which is huge, and the amount of players in the talent pool. But I just find Eddie Jones, and he might be a lovely man, but just in terms of a human element, like the way that he spoke to Sonia McLaughlin on an interview before when she's asking him a question doing a job, like when you try and get access to the players and these different things, it just seems so closed off. It's mental. And on the flip side of that, you got someone like Razor who's the polar opposite and fucking breakdance. Says after every win. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what the question is there, Mike, but having worked with Eddie, do you feel like he's lost a little bit of the, I don't know, like that kind of Australian charm, if you want to put it at that he seemed to have a little bit at the end? It seems almost a bit tiresome now.
Yeah, I just think from my experiences in rugby, there's just got to be that balance of the high performance side, which Eddie does have to be fed to him in terms of what I'm saying in his coaching and stuff like that. And when he first came in, getting us to understand the high performance side of recovery and detail and what we needed to do to improve that team, but there's just no balance for me through my own experiences, kind of speaking to people since, and also seeing what's on the field. It's just got to be more to it than just trying to win in that high performance side. There has to be. Through my career, I've spoken to Welsh and Irish players, Scottish, but they're not as successful, are they? So they don't really count. But and
beat England back to back. Just saying,
they beat us. They keep beating us.
They seem to come out of camps and really enjoy and want to go back in and enjoy their time. And I just think there's got to be more to it. And just thinking of someone that can be a bit of out of the box candidate in Razor, not that usual kind of RFU man. This think out of the box and think about what's going to get the best out of these players from their personalities and things like that. Because we know who's going to be there for this World Cup. We know who's most likely going to be taken on to the next cycle as well. We can look at their personalities and what we think would get the best out of them and kind of pick someone that can do that. You know, look at someone like Marcus Smith. You can't tell me that he's playing like he does for Harlequins. There's not a chance.
and it's the key position, and that's like the number one position, and he's not playing anywhere near like what he looks like.
Everything just points to the environment for me. It has to, the turnover of staff, the way the players are playing, what they're producing on the field, the stories we keep hear coming out of camp or, from people that leave camp, all points to the environment. So we need someone in there that's going to create, an environment that allows these players to flourish. And we don't want to see Marcus Smith, who week in, week out is having unbelievable comebacks in a Harlequin shirt, kicking the ball out in what's essentially a friendly against the 14-man New Zealand team, where they could have won and had what an achievement that would have been to get that comeback and get that win. That's what should have been driving them, and being brave. That's what something that Razor said all week was just be brave on the field. He encourages you to be brave all the time. So just wanted to be brave and show what they, the talent that they've clearly got.
Yeah, 100%. Looking at it, and one of the things you said around Eddie's environments, it's an environment of fear, and I completely agree with a lot of things you've said. The one thing I can't quite get my head around, and I've been there myself as a player, is all the stuff you hear from the players that are in camp. They all seem to speak very positively about Eddie Jones. Now, I don't know whether that is because of the fear, whether that is because of the fear themselves of not getting picked. We've seen what's happened to Danny Kerr and other players, maybe yourself a little bit, standing up to what Eddie said and done. But the bigger names all seem to back him, right? And is that just a consequence of wanting to play for England and you don't want to say anything out of line where you're just going to get chastised aside? Because it doesn't add up, does it? The environment from the outsider seems pretty unhappy and pretty fearful, but people from inside are saying, "No, Eddie's he's a great tactician, he's a great guy." Ellis Genge's come out and backed him as well. And is that just because they're in an England jersey and they want to carry on if Eddie carries on, or is it actually the truth, or is it just lies because they're desperate to play for England? Do you reckon?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of referring to at the start. Having being aware of who you who we're kind of listening to. Present players or past players, because it's so hard. Like, we know what it's like when you're in those environments. You're getting picked, especially if you're getting picked. You're not going to say anything, especially with all that's riding on playing for England. You've got guys in there that would absolutely love playing for England, rightly so. I loved playing for England. Like, it was all I wanted to do since the age of 5, and there'd be 30 odd guys in there exactly the same as me. So they're not going to want to jeopardize that. There's the financial side, especially now. You're not going to make decent amount of money unless you're starting regularly for England because of how bad the contracts are. So are you going to put that on the line by calling someone out, the head guy? Well, of course you're not. So it's so hard for them. I was speaking to Ugo actually the other day. He made a good point to me, is if the RFU had good relationships with the teams, then they could go and speak to those DORs and see what those players coming out of camp are saying. Honestly, because that's who they're going to tell. They're going to tell their club DORs or club coaches. Then you can find out without actually names being put to it and things like that, and do a decent review off the back of things like that, instead of this faceless review panel where no one even knows who's on it. It could be flipping the guy down from the local shop that could be on it. No one knows. So just things like that, to try and get an honest opinion from what's going on in there. But it's so hard. But I'm sure people do like him as well, who are playing. Picked. I'm sure Ellis does like him, because Ellis is, it's different for everyone, isn't it? I don't know. It's hard to say. There'll be people in there who will like him, I'm sure, but it's about getting those opinions, the truthful opinions as best as possible by doing decent reviews, by thinking of ways that you can do these reviews to get what you need out of it.
You mentioned if they got a review of the players that you might get an honest review. Do you think if they asked like Farrell, Smith, Itoje, do you think if those guys were part of the review as a sort of leadership group, they'd come back and give them positive feedback? If it was anonymous and those guys were part of the review?
Who knows? Anonymous.
I don't know, yeah. That's a good question.
That's what they said they're going to do, Brownie. That's the rumour out there, that the panel, whoever the panel is, if it is Geach and all these guys from 1932, stop being horrible, Jim, that they're the ones that are going to go and ask, like, anonymously, whatever that means.
These are, if you haven't got the best track record with anonymous reviews, have they? It always seems to come out, even though this face of panel never comes out. But all these other reviews, there was that stuff with Minty Nick Easter, wasn't there? That stuff that came out, and there's stuff that come out on reviews before. Yeah, I don't know. But I think it's about going out and doing a proper review, like speaking to DOR, speaking to club coaches, speaking to players anonymously as much as you can, getting people on the panel that understand high performance environments, and that can be across all sports, understand the landscape and ecosystem of the Premiership rugby, whether as a player recently, or as a coach. I kind of referenced someone like Richard Wigglesworth, still a player, but very much a coach as well. Been in England, the England squads before, and loves everything about playing for England. Someone like that, Ugo, who understands the landscape and ecosystem of Premiership rugby because he's doing it, every day as his job, and has good opinions. People like that. Maybe even you two.
Pod.
Rugby pod.